Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David, and welcome to our listeners across the country and the world. This is the Feeling Good podcast, episode 345. And this is another example of the incredible personal work that you do in the Tuesday group with your co-therapist, Jill Levitt, who is also here with us.
With my brilliant and awesome co-therapist, and the wonderful, amazing young woman who we got to work with, who you're about to meet, but her name is Veena. And she's one of my new heroes in the world.
Nice. Well, I just want to say, having listened to the podcast, to the personal work, and then again listening to the recording, you and Jill jump in pretty quickly to testing. So that's what our listeners should expect. You're going to start with that part of the team therapy model, with doing the testing, and then you do lots of empathy, and then we're going to finish the second part next week.
That's right. And Veena brings to us a problem that's dear to my heart and my life, actually. But it has to do with the practical problem and then the meaning associated with it. And many women have difficulties, at least at first, becoming pregnant. And that's a great sadness, just for fear maybe I won't have the baby I've always dreamed of having. But above and beyond that, when we can't achieve something that we want, it can be a tremendous blow to our self-esteem. It can be a cultural issue, and it also can potentially interfere with marital relationships and family relationships. And Veena is giving us a chance to work on this thing when it's raw and alive. And although I always love, working with you, Jill, as a co-therapist, and you, Rhonda, as a co-therapist, and the sessions almost always seem to be an issue of magic and miracle, really. To me, the sessions are usually mind-blowing. But to be honest, I don't remember a session ever that I've valued more or enjoyed more than this one with you, Veena.
Mm.
I'm not quite sure why.
The listeners will hear and connect with Veena, which is, I felt the same way, just kind of blown away by Veena's warmth and, family values, like love, her openness and her connection with her husband. It was just, really like such a beautiful spirit. And so I think we just felt so connected with Veena, and we just felt so happy to see her transformation.
And it was much more. Of course, we'll find out what it is now. Maybe it's all wiped out now, but it was more than just feeling less crappy. It was really a transformation to my way of thinking, which is elderly and half demented. Yet I would still say that it looked to me like you see an enlightenment happen before your very eyes. Should we hear from Veena before we start?
Yeah, Veena, do you want to say anything as we're about to launch into the journey that you took with David and Jill?
I just want to extend a lot of gratitude to Jill and David because I was really down the day my reports came and thing happened, and I emailed David, and he was so quick in replying and being there as my support. So I really want to extend my gratitude. This community is really warm and, very supportive, and I couldn't have asked for more. That day really changed, and I've been feeling quite confident. I don't know how, from where, but things have changed quite a bit for me, and there's a huge gratitude in my heart.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's jump in.
Gratitude in our hearts too, Veena.
Okay, let's jump in so that everyone can listen to the beginning of the personal work with Veena. And again, you'll hear the enlightenment a little bit more next week. But the empathy that you, Jill, and David give to Veena is so heartwarming and beautiful. It's amazing. And a great example of using the 5 secrets and giving empathy and making that connection with each other.
Your depression score just prior to us starting is 9 out of 20, which is in the mild to moderate level. It's halfway to very severe, which would be 20. And the thing that is strongest for you is a loss of motivation, and then also a moderate loss of pleasure or satisfaction, and moderately sad and down in the dumps, and then somewhat discouraged and hopeless, and some loss of self-esteem and worthlessness. So really sad that you're hurting like this, and we'll go into the 2 losses that you've had of concern about a baby and about your mother, who you love, being so ill with a brain tumor. And there's no suicidal feelings. The anxiety is 9 out of 20. That's the same severity as the depression. But the anxiety itself is a lot. So that's heading up in the moderate to severe range. And no anger. And then on the happiness test, 13 out of 20, which isn't bad. It's not great. A 20 is just feeling really happy, and that would be ideal. And a 0 is the worst. And so a 13 is a little over halfway to the goal. And just to get things kick-started, maybe I could read, or maybe if you have it, Veena, you could read your daily mood log. I don't know, did you send it to the entire group or just to Jill and David?
Just to Jill and David.
Start by telling us what's actually going on, because the group doesn't know what she's going through. Tell us a little context of what's happening before she reads her negative thoughts to us.
Sure. I was just wondering if you'd want to email it to the group as an attachment, or want me to do that so people could look at it, or do you prefer not to do that?
I'm okay with the group looking at it.
It's okay to do that?
Yes.
Yes, I'll do that right now, and you can get it started, Jill. Thank you.
Yeah, so Veena, as David said, it's a pleasure to work with you and get to know you better. And I'm sorry to hear that you've been suffering. And can you share with the group a little bit about what's been happening and what you've been thinking and feeling?
So first of all, thank you, David and Jill, for doing this at this time when your health is not that great. I really appreciate the replies I got from you and all the empathy. So basically, last year, September, my mom got diagnosed with brain tumor, and she was operated for the same. And then we got to know in the reports that her tumor is cancerous. So she's currently under that treatment, though it's a very early stage, but she's under treatment at the moment and doing okay, but not great. And my journey, so I'm 4 years into marriage at the moment. And my journey started when I tried to conceive, but couldn't conceive naturally. I was 2 years in marriage, 2.5 years in marriage then. And basically, I had so much my studies and my career going on at the moment. And we decided to keep it on a hold for some time. And then we started the journey back a few months back, after 1 month after we got to know about my mom. So I again couldn't conceive for a few months, 2 months naturally, and on the meds with the doctor, my gynec. And then she asked me to do an advanced X-ray, which is called HS-graphy here. So I got that done, and the reports weren't that great. So the reports showed that my fallopian tubes were open, but they had some infection for which they were swollen and not functioning up to the mark. So then she put me on an antibiotic course for a month, and she would put me under observation for 3 months to see if I can conceive. Otherwise, I don't have IUI as an option. I just have IVF as an option. And that's pretty scary at the moment because my other all options have been checked off. Yeah.
You're pausing. Do you want us to respond a little bit, or did you want to share a little bit about how you've been feeling and experiencing all of this?
It is pretty saddening. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Seems like you're feeling pretty tearful and choked up and sad right now, are you?
Yeah.
Just let it happen. I'm so sorry to hear you've been hit by both of these blows from really hurting.
Yeah, so basically it's not just about me. Of course, at the human level, it is very hurtful because there are certain dreams that I've always had, that I always thought of and dreamt of. But it's also about my mom, who's expecting me to have a baby, and so that she can see my baby before anything bad happens to her. And then it's about my husband, who has his dreams too. And then it's about my in-laws, who are really, really supportive, but they're expecting, and it feels that I'm not able to give what they're expecting.
Yeah. So you're feeling especially sad right now in thinking about your dream to have a baby and have a family and be a mother, but also so thoughtfully thinking of your mom, who you're also feeling worried about in terms of her life. Will she be able to see you have a baby? Will you be able to give her grandchildren? And your husband dream of having children and your in-laws. And so you feel not only sad and worried for yourself, will you be able to be a parent, but also feeling like you're letting down other people in your family, your husband, your parents, your in-laws, who also want so much to see you have a baby.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I feel really sad hearing what you're going through. And as David said, we've actually talked to other people in the group too. We've had this theme come up for others. I'm not sure if you were there when Carly did her work a while ago, but it's definitely been a theme we've shared with others too, this feeling of wanting so badly to be a parent and not knowing whether you'll be able to, right? And you're saying at this point, you shared with us that you started by sharing with us that in the background, your mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor, which was removed. It sounds like it was found to be cancerous and kind of early stage cancer, but she's having cancer treatment. And excuse me, you said she's doing okay, not great. Does that mean not great just from chemo and things like that, or that the cancer is progressing? Tell us what you meant when you shared that with us.
The chemo and her treatment, the cancer is not growing at the moment.
Yeah. But she's just not feeling good, right? Because she's being put through so much. Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes. And she's been through multiple infections, two or three times, and a UTI during this process, and being admitted for 15, 20 days at a stretch, and then all of that. So it's not that great at the moment, like her health.
Yeah.
How far is your mom from where you live, Veena?
It's at least 3 hours from here, David, from where
3 hours. You weren't here when we worked with Carly, is that right, Veena?
Yes, I wasn't here, but I've listened to both the podcasts some time ago.
And then there was another podcast. Let me just see if I can find it with Daisy.
Yeah.
Do you know that one, Veena?
No, I'm not aware of that one. I'm aware of the one with Carly.
Okay, let me find the one, because my parents couldn't have children either. And so they adopted 3 children. And then unexpectedly, they came along later. And I've had many patients who, like yourself, were told that they couldn't have children. I think Carly was concerned about that pretty seriously too, and then went on and became pregnant. And of course, there's no guarantees in life, but I've seen it happen so many times, and I hope we can help you with that also. Let me see. I'm trying to find the list of podcasts so I can give you the number of the one with Daisy. Just give me a second. Let's see, the quick list of podcasts. Here we go. And
do you want me to talk to Veena a little bit? I was just
please.
Going to say that, it sounds very difficult. Difficult enough just feeling sad and worried about your mom and seeing her in and out of the hospital. And I know how stressful that is, and worrisome and sad and burdensome too. And so then I just wanted to make sure, just more from a clarification perspective, that I really heard and understood all of what you were talking about with your own fertility journey. Essentially, you're telling us that I think you said that about 2 years into marriage, you tried to conceive and you couldn't conceive, but then you didn't continue trying at that point. You were busy with school and other things. And so it was really just maybe a few months ago when you tried to conceive again, spent a couple months trying, that you then had this x-ray done. And that's when you got these results that are saying that you have an infection in your fallopian tubes and that they're open, but they're not functioning properly because of this infection. And so you were put on antibiotics. The doctor was basically saying, we'll see if the antibiotics work, right? And maybe the antibiotics will work and the swelling will go down, and then your fallopian tubes will work as you would want them to work. So there's a possibility of that, but then there's also the possibility, the doctor said, if we can't cure the infection, then the other option would be IVF as an option. And you said you can't try IUI, meaning there's not this middle ground option. The only option would be IVF. And then that feels really hard for you. Am I right that it sounds like it's still uncertain because it's possible you'll respond well to the antibiotics? Or was I not getting that right?
Yeah, there is a possibility, but not a big possibility there, not a much possibility there.
Okay. So the most likely thing at this point then is that in order for you to conceive and get pregnant on your own, that you would have to go through IVF. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And that news feels really hard for you. It sounds like, if I'm connecting the dots, though, it sounds almost like hearing that news makes you then jump to the conclusion that you might not be able to have children at all. And help me understand, because I actually don't know. I know that you live in India and I live so worlds apart from you. And so I don't even know, like, how possible would it be for you to get IVF? I imagine it's expensive. And so help us understand, just as you're wrapping your head around this reality or possibility, tell us more about what that means to you. Because I heard you say that makes you conclude I won't be able to have children. Or is it more just like you're worried, what if I couldn't have children and how sad I would be if that were the case?
Yeah, so if I talk about financials, thankfully my in-laws and my parents are quite well to do. So I can go through the process of IVF. That's not a problem at the moment. And thankfully my husband and my family, both the families are very supportive. So that's not the problem. And in India, IVF are quite successful also, but then it's very worrisome because one, I've not seen success in the journey much. I've been seeing just the downfalls for a long time. And the second is that I've heard of a lot of IVF failures also that people go through. And that makes me worried because I don't know what kind of journey will start, me and my husband, if we start. And the idea of hearing no from so many doctors that, oh, this is not working, or let's try that, and then that is not working. And then telling me that this is the only option, maybe then we'll tell you 3 months later. So I'm just feeling very anxious and scared. And that what if that also doesn't work out?
Right. Right.
You're feeling anxious and scared, and the IVF seems like a lot of uncertainty and anxiety and going to lots of doctors and that type of thing. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And the two episodes are number 79 and number 80, and they were, I think, two of our most popular podcasts of all time. With Daisy and her husband were on those two podcasts. It was one session broken into two, and you might find that kind of helpful. Daisy was thinking that the IVF was not going to work because it had tried and failed, and she wanted more than anything to have a baby, and it was looking pretty impossible. And it was a good session, and I hope ours will be really helpful to you too. But it was interesting that one exact week after that session, she became pregnant. And so I've seen this so many times, and you can't promise anything. I'd like to go over your daily mood log just so everyone knows exactly what you're thinking and feeling. Is that okay?
Yes, that's okay.
This is when you got a report of the infection in your fallopian tubes and concern that you're going to be unable to conceive naturally or with medications, and thinking that IVF may be your only option. And the intensity of your negative feelings has been super intense, much more severe at times than at the beginning of the session tonight. And you've been sad and blue and depressed and down and unhappy, and you rate at 100, which is the most severe a human being can feel. So you've been just really hurting, almost beyond what people could imagine. It's so, at times, so painful for you. And also 100% frightened, anxious, and worried. And then 100% guilty and remorseful, and 100% feeling inferior, worthless, and defective. And self-conscious, 80, hopeless, discouraged, and pessimistic, 70, and upset, 70. And like Jill, I just feel very sad and kind of fond of you, and sad that you're hurting so much. And every now and then, for many of us, maybe most of us, I call it getting kicked in the stomach by life. Like something horrible happens and it just knocks us over. And then your negative thoughts were, the first one was a should statement. It shouldn't have happened to me. That was 100%. And that might be a defiant one, perhaps, or maybe the angry, upset type of one. Then maybe I will never be a mother, 60%. I've always dreamed of it, but I won't have one of my own. Another sad thought, 60%. And it will ruin Sumi's life with me. That's your husband.
Yeah, that's my husband.
60%. And my marriage may go down the line because of my absence of a kid, 80%.
Yeah.
And then it's all my fault. I should have taken those precautions earlier. That was 95. And my in-laws love me so much, they might start disliking and ignoring me because I couldn't give them an heir. And that's another 100%. And I'll always be looked upon with sympathy, another 100. Or I may always be looked down on, another 100%. Or I'll be sidelined by my own people, 100. And my mom is ill, so she wants to see her grandchild. I will not be able to fulfill her wish. I'm not being a good daughter to her. That's a sad one. That's probably guilt and remorse. That's another 100. And there's no meaning to life without children. That's 100. And my own body can't suffice for my own baby. Sad. And do those thoughts bring tears to your eyes also?
Yeah.
Have you cried a lot about this?
Yeah, the day I wrote this, it was really hard. I was crying for a few hours that day, and my husband was very supportive and very concerned. So that's the day I wrote the DML, because I'm just 28, David, and people at my age or later my age conceive very easily, and I'm quite young, and at the same time I've always been very cautious of my health and my body, that I don't have any problems. And this infection came like you said, a kick in my stomach altogether. And then I was feeling guilty of. So when I got married, I was young. I was very young. I was just 24 at that time. So me and my husband, we are same age. We didn't want to have a baby at that time because we were too young. I was still to finish my studies. And so we decided to use some precautions, not have a baby. So I'm feeling guilty for that also, because a lot of people were telling me to conceive at that point itself, but maybe we were not ready. And and I have 3 nephews and a niece, and I love them so much. They're so fond of me, and I always dreamt of having that to myself. And it's hard. It's going to be very difficult for me if I don't happen to. Yeah.
You love him a lot, and he's very fond of you. And
my nephew.
Oh, your nephew, yeah.
Yeah,
I see. And then you're feeling some remorse that you didn't get pregnant when you were 24?
It's a guilt more. Yeah, it's more over a guilt that everyone was telling me that you should conceive early at that age, but maybe we were not ready. I had my studies going on. So we decided to postpone it until we are 26, 27. Me and my husband thought we'll just take the journey when we are a little more settled and a little more ready. And now I'm feeling a little guilty that maybe it was possible easily back then, and now I've made it difficult for myself. And I get to hear that from a lot of relatives that...
You have relatives who are saying you should have done it before. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So in India, people talk about these things a lot, and they tell you things on your face. It's not like fear. It's feared fantasy in real life, Jill, where they tell you, oh, why didn't you do it earlier? And, oh, these are natural things. You shouldn't stop them. You should just go with the flow and all of that. So it's pretty awkward, embarrassing.
Yeah.
And these are like people elder to you, so you can just tell them off. You just have to at times. Yeah.
I know. I'm just chuckling, but empathically chuckling with you. Just that I'm picturing your elderly auntie or grandma or whoever saying, oh, you should have gotten, it's so private, but it's like, oh, you should have gotten pregnant then. And why didn't you get pregnant then? And but how painful for you, because you're already thinking that on your own. And then to have people say that to you, you're saying it feels very embarrassing and awkward, and you feel guilty and responsible. And sort of course, now because you're struggling, you're wishing that you had done it earlier, even though you're also acknowledging we just got married and we were young and I had school and there were so many good reasons not to get pregnant. But it's hard now that you're having difficulty not to wish that you had done it earlier. Yeah, I totally understand.
I have a question for you, Veena. How are you feeling right now to be opening up in front of the group? You said that you feel embarrassed about you're guilty and ashamed with regard to some of your relatives and family. How does it feel talking about it here tonight?
As I told you, David, this feels like a family because this group has always been so warm towards me. So it feels like a safe space at the moment. Though I'm feeling sad and a bit nervous because there are like lots of small boxes looking at me, but it feels like a safe space.
So thank you for that. You say you do feel a little bit nervous with so many faces looking at you. Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
And what are the thoughts that make you feel a little bit nervous?
Okay, so there are a few thoughts like this is very sensitive and it feels a little exposed to tell the group so many private things. The second is maybe people here would be thinking that, yeah, I should have done it earlier. I mean, why did I put it off the table? And maybe few of them would be thinking like that I shouldn't have. And I don't know.
And then if one or more are thinking, gee, Veena should have done it earlier, how would you be feeling toward those people?
I would be feeling towards them, I don't know, but towards myself, maybe guilty. Yeah.
Toward yourself, you would be feeling what?
Guilty.
Oh, yeah, guilty. And then what is the name of the emotion that you'd have toward the people who were judging you? You kind of dodged that question, avoided that question.
I do feel upset with them because it feels like they don't understand how hard this is.
And then would you have any negative feelings toward people who don't understand?
I just feel very upset with them. I don't feel angry or resentful of them. I just feel very upset.
Sure.
That isn't that very sensitive to have, and why would you think of me like that?
Misunderstood.
Misunderstood, right? And upset, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just asking for your guidance here, Jill. We have so many directions to go in, but would there be any value in having Veena ask some of them?
I guess I would say there's a lot of work we can do with Veena on her own negative thoughts about the situation, her anxiety and sadness about the situation itself. I guess we could ask Veena. David just did a downward arrow. What if the people in the group judged you? How would you feel about them? Are you worried that people might judge you? So if you have worries that people in the group would judge you or misunderstand you, that people would think that you should have done it earlier, then one method you could use would be like the survey technique, right? You could ask people, how are they feeling about you right now? Are they judging you or looking down on you? Would you want to do that? That would be one thing we could do. I would say basically briefly before we would do the more
sure
necessary work of working on your own anxiety and sadness.
Beautifully stated. Would you like to just briefly ask the group, ask some of them?
Sure. I mean, I can. People who are a little elder, maybe, because maybe the young ones can relate with me. But
exactly, whoever you would be. I mean, when we do this, it's essentially whoever you would worry would be judgmental of you. You could actually call on someone if you'd like to. And then you would, in the survey technique, you'd ask them a question. So you'd say something like, Do you judge me or look down on me, or are you telling yourself that I should have done this earlier and looking down on me?
All right. So I think I can begin with you, Jill, and then maybe someone else.
Me? You're going to start with me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because we know Jill can be very judgmental. It's a good choice.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. No, I just feel so much empathy for you. No, I think there's no way you possibly could have known. And I relate to so much. Actually, I was married when I was 25. So I guess kind of young. I didn't even think of it as that young, but I tried to get pregnant and had my first child at 30. So I spent plenty of time working and enjoying my marriage without a baby and thought that was a wonderful decision. And I just don't think that we can ever look back on something and say we should have done it this way, because we did it for all the right reasons at that moment in time. So it would never even occur to me to judge you.
Thank you, Jill.
Was that helpful?
Yeah, very.
Was it a surprise, or is that what you expected?
I didn't know about Jill much, so that came as a surprise. But otherwise, I think I expected maybe that she might not be judging. But I didn't know that she almost had the same kind of line as me.
Yeah.
Try another person. You did great on that one, Veena.
Maybe I can ask Indrani.
Good choice. Because I've heard Indrani
I just have to say something else that's really funny, which is that I actually forget that I'm old. So when she said, that's why I started laughing. When I still kind of think that I'm 25. So when I have patients who say I'm 25 in my brain, I go, oh, me too. So when you said I want to ask the old people, and then you said Jill, I started laughing.
It's weird, huh?
I had to share that with you.
I was calculating your age, Jill.
I'm 48, so I am old. Anyway, now it's Indrani's turn.
Yeah, I could legitimately be Veena's auntie for sure, and absolutely not Veena. I mean, when you were just talking about what you've been experiencing, it just brought tears to my eyes, because I've known so many people, so many women going through this, and I know what an incredibly difficult journey this is. And there is no way that you could have possibly known at 24. And like Jill said, you had many good reasons not to have children. And my daughter is over 30, and they've decided not to have kids because she's in a very rigorous training program. So she and her husband have decided to postpone it. So I think what you did was a good decision in that moment. But no, I'm just filled with not only empathy, but admiration and love for you, because you're not only thinking about yourself, but everyone else, your mom, your in-laws, your husband, you're thinking about everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
What did you think about that, Veena?
I think I feel a little connected also, because seems like everyone's on the same journey as me, like people who have children my age, and maybe they are also not having babies at the moment. Maybe I don't know what their journey would be, but it makes me feel that maybe it was not such a bad decision at 24. Putting that on.
Do you believe in Indrani and Jill? Indrani said she feels love for you.
I do.
Is that at all helpful for you to hear that?
It is very.
You want to ask one other person, and then we'll dive into, because the one thing you can control is your own thoughts and feelings. And that's the direction I always go in when I'm working with a woman who's very distressed about difficulties conceiving a baby, because your body knows how you're feeling. And when you change the way you think and feel, your body realizes that as well, and things can change in your body. But ask another one. You can probably find some angry-looking, judgmental person to ask.
I don't see anyone like that, but let me ask Daniel Levy.
It's so funny. Thank you. Thank you for asking me. I'm super excited, but I skipped the elderly and I got into the angry. I'm like, I can't win. I was like, I had the same reaction.
You're just judgmental.
Elderly, it's going to be me.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I have so much empathy for you, Veena. Like, on the contrary, it's almost like I would be almost like mad at you if at 25, the first thing that you did after getting married was to have a kid. I've been married for 23 years. That's how elderly I am. And I was married for 5 years before I had my first kid. And then I had to get fertility treatment to get my second kid, as honestly, like 2/3, if not 3/4 of the women like that I hang out with here in Silicon Valley is just like super, super common. But I think that, again, at 24, starting your life, building your career, I think it's really hard to be like a fulfilled and honestly happy mother long term if you're not happy with yourself. And if that's the dreams that you had for you at 24, I'm so proud and happy for you to have gone after them. And even though I can see how like devastating it feels to you right now to be having this fertility struggles, I am here on the other side, as perhaps another survey you want to do here is among the elderly among us. It's like, who has gone through fertility treatment or knows people who have done that here? It's just so common. It's just like where we are as a society with where our bodies are, as females of the species just isn't aligned anymore. So science and technology have helped us, right? Getting closer to having it all. I don't think women by any stretch of the imagination have it all, but if you want to have a little bit more than what like generations before us have, science is your friend. So I am proud of you for doing things that make you happy and super hopeful that you will get what you want at the end. But let's see how David and Jill will guide you there.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Cool. Let me ask you another question now, Veena. Jill has been doing a beautiful job of empathizing, and I've tried to do a little too. And several of the people have said how they actually do feel about you. And I'm wondering if you could give us a letter grade on how empathic we've been so far. There's 3 parts to empathy. One is, to what extent do we understand how you're thinking, what your thoughts are? To what extent do you feel that we understand how you're feeling emotionally, what your feelings are? And the third thing is, to what extent do you feel accepted and cared for?
So I think pretty much there. I think an A on empathy. I'm feeling accepted, and I'm also feeling a little relief at the moment after the survey, where I've heard so many people share their journeys and how they think that it was the right decision for me to make because I was young and I had a career on my checklist and I was studying at that moment. So I think I'm feeling accepted, I'm feeling understood and empathetic and relief also.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borovsky, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.